I started first, I wanted to talk about the thing I was telling you about, the kind of robot exploring a patch, but I would have need to bring my modular synth, and I knew it would rain. So I just went, that was 3 months ago, so I knew it would rain. Here it rains from August till July. So I decided to go for something simple. And I therefore want to talk to you through my calibration system, which is very boring and very technical, yet it allows to make incredible cool music, which is not possible otherwise, except if you have lots of money and have a technician patching behind you, which the kind of music I do doesn't have. So it allows me this kind of calibration. It enables composition with fragile settings in the live setup. For instance, what I will show today, quiet acoustic feedback, which I will play, and descriptor-based granulation, which is a clever bit. There's a dumb bit, feedback is easy, but still quite risky, especially because those of you who don't know, most of my chamber music, the speakers are behind the musician, because I like unity of sound sources, and I like to build on the ability for chamber music players to actually listen to their music, not to listen to a foldback of their music. So playing with the actual source as sources, not source as kind of cheap surrogacy. So, the why and of why I do that are very clear. I told you about the rockstar fantasy. I want the thing to be tour ready. I told you about the techno-fluency as orchestration. So for me, all of you are incredible orchestrators because you master your instrument and its possibilities and its limits. Because no orchestra is absolute. Each sound has got its limits, its player's got its limits, and you know that, and you manage your ways around it. So for me, I see it the same way, both an art and a technique that fight each other in a creative manner. And you manage to make it sing. And that's what I try to do too. And I also like my collaboration. So those are all my biases that I've told you a bit about. And I play you different style of music because for me there's no difference. I use the same ears, the same bad taste, and the same brains and past composed music that I feel makes sense in a given context. They're not the same thing in terms of context or rendering or people that will listen to them, but they're the same thing in my head. And I accept cross-pollination as a way to get out of my cultural ruts. I think there are many things that we can learn from other music practices. So it sounds so obvious today. 25 years ago in academia, that didn't go down very well, but it's okay. Like, I presume getting old and repeating the same thing many, many times, people eventually have got to listen. So now I'll focus on the how. You know why? I'll focus on the how. First, the system is calibrated, and then, oh, I've got slides. Look at this. I'm gonna press record, you'll like this. So this is the talk I actually gave ICMC about the overview of the methodology. This is not what I want you to do, by the way, tomorrow. I just want to show you that there is a strict methodology of using the DAW and feeding in and out of jack audio. That shouldn't be rocket science for any of you doing cross-application audio. What's interesting is that the DAW is my orchestra, and Max, my performance Max patch, is actually running the gig patch in real time. And you have to think about all the problems that you get live. One of them is that the systems usually sound between mediocre and bad, because you have the room, you have the speakers, and you have a lot of things. And there's a lot of things I've learned from high-flying stadium gigs that way, because that's where my friend works to do kind of Céline Dion type of tour, and I've looked at what they were doing, and I said, woo! And then with Alex, we designed some tools to use it in mixed music, because these guys are doing stereo. They don't do 27 by 63 channel stuff, or any other combination. So none of these tools are available for our kind of music, and the science is quite old, and I was pissed off. So we did that. Alex did a good set of tools. Anyway, so we have all this on the paper, and you should have fun, and blah, 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 blah. That's not what I'm going to show. I'm going to actually show you how it works. Because that's not very interesting. I'm going to open the patch. But what you have to understand is what I'm trying to do is I'm going into that mode of I need to find a way that my collaborators, the musicians who play my music, when I'm there, I can fix it. When I'm not there, they will trust that the UPJ at ear levels, at that distance behind them will not go full blast in feedback. Yet, they will play feedback. And that's what I want to be able to compose. Either I fix that technical problem, and then I'm free to compose, or I don't fix it. And then I pray. And sadly, in our field of mixed music, there's way too many people who rely on the latter. I prefer the former. So I will show you how I do it. I'll show it through the patch. That's going to be it. And then you can ask questions. So the routine is super simple. It's very dumb, but it's very disciplined. That's where creativity goes out of the window somehow, and it goes straight. So I'm going to do now is screen sharing, and I've not done it. This is just barely plugged. That is the whole point. I'm going live with it, and if I put my money where my mouth is, let's see if it freaks. So first, screen sharing. And that's the plan for these talks. You can go screen sharing, you can ask questions, you can interrupt me anytime. By the way, I'm bulletproof, as you've already noticed. So go for it. If you have any question about what I'm saying on the patch. If I found the bloody this mirror display, here we go, we're in.
Looks good.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you. It's that's still recording. We are in. Cool. So, RME interface, small microphone here. And for today's presentation, I will not calibrate the sound system for two reasons. First, nobody wants to hear sweeps. Second, I don't want to lose time with you listening to sweeps. We have a limited amount of time. I've got 23 minutes left, so I've got to be focused. But when they receive the performance patch, as you can see here, there is a simple set of it's working. A simple set of calibration utilities that you run in order, and there's a series of instructions. One of them is the speaker correction, which I will not run today, but will run sweeps. Is it going to open the right Macs? Yay! You can see I've got different versions of Macs running, you're often in parallel, but in that case, no. So we're going to do a sine tone, and I'm going to do that like I do live. I'm going to go completely verbose. I'm going to go that at 0, and then I'm going to play the signal in the sound card. I'm going completely verbose on this, and you say, man.
Is this for recording impulses, like of a room? Or
Yeah, we do recall impulse response and then inversion. Either at the moment they're white, but soon there will be room gain compensation. So
this Genelex, the 83, they're also the GLM software ones?
These don't have the GLM because what we found out is that that software is just okay. This works much better, and I can show you.
Can I get this?
Yeah, you can. Exactly. It's all free, and it's been downloaded gazillions of times. The patches and the help file and all of this is available, and the new version is coming out next week. N'est-ce pas, Alex?
Yeah.
Is it next week?
But supposedly it was a month ago, so.
It wasn't me, I didn't know.
So, at the moment I've got a tone going out, and I'm gonna, as you can see, it's a multi-channel piece. This is the stereo version, so it shouldn't measure, but it's not really important. It's you're gonna have a multi-channel, and when it's multi-channel, there's a channel down, and then you just do the peak. And what I'm gonna do is gonna skip this bit, because in my patch there's unity corrections right here. So when the patch has always got correction, but when you studio setting, you don't need correction. So I've got unity calibration going on. The second bit is gonna be to check not this max, please. It's going to be to check that my speakers are the right level. The instruction is quite simple. First, get the thing going. It's a stereo, so stereo redux it. Make sure that actually the thing is going out. It's going out, so I can raise the PA, and it is working. Now I know that the PA is too soft. Why do I know that? Because the next instruction in the calibration is that this should sound like your instrumentalist at the loudest that they speak, which is conference mode. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to give it another 10 dB and see where it goes. So far so good. Sounds vaguely like my volume. It doesn't need to be able. It's too loud. Thank you, Alex.
Are you using a mic or are you using a...
No, I'm using my ears.
Just your ears?
At the moment. The mic has been done with calibration, has been done with a flat mic if you have a Class A microphone. And if you don't have a Class A microphone, we have a good paper that shows that, Alex, even with shitty 414s, you've managed to calibrate a room which was so bad
that... I'm assuming that you would want to be in the listener.
Yeah, 4 positions and you average them. Don't worry, we all do that.
Okay.
But at the moment, I'm going for flat because what I want to show you is how simple it is. It has to be simple enough for a clarinetist or a saxophone player to do it without me. So this is about my volume, maybe it's slightly too loud still. So I'll give it a little less. So you calibrate your PA in the analog domain, that's the output of the PA, and we're done. So the next patch, we'll do something even more fun. We'll not talk about this, you can read the paper. But this one, what it does, because it's bypassed at the moment anyway, that's why it's red. This patch is there to check my input, which I've got a mic somewhere. Good old DPA. So if I do that, as you can see, it's not loud enough. Forte, 1, 2, it's not loud enough. So I can go in my mixer and crank the gain, I would say about 10. It's got 10 at the beginning. Let's just look at the window. 1, 2, it's a bit soft. 1, 2, 1, 2, testing, woo! Okay, so I've got vaguely some kind of gain. What I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna talk a bit like this. And then you'll say, PA, it's way too loud. Or is it too soft? Is it too loud? Is it too soft? Is it too loud? It's louder than me. So I'm gonna lower the volume here to get to unity. So my patch, after the conversion, after the microphone correction, after the speaker correction, gets a unity inside the pipeline of the processing. So I think we could go maybe -3, and you can confirm now.
-6.
Yeah, sorry, I was at the wrong place. What about this? Good enough for jazz? Still too loud? I'm not in the axis. I should be in front to be proper. How's that?
Too soft.
So let's leave it there. I'll show you the tolerance anyway. So you save the volume preference. Here you set the Q pedal. As you know, Q pedals come in all flavors and shape. So you can save whichever, and it's saved as a preset file that the user can then reload. And that preset file at the moment has got 2 information. Q0 is the conversion in dB to amplitude. Q99 is the pedal. Boring as I'm sorry about this. Let's continue.
Are you applying a bunch of room response equalizers and filters to each side as it picks up the information? I'm just basing this off of like the GLM software.
Oh yeah, we do. We can talk about the speaker correction another time. We do all that. All the speakers are cross-calibrated. They all normalize the same volume. It's all happening. Now I'm just in the workflow of making chamber music. Nobody cares about this in chamber music. So what I'm going to do now is once I've done the parity...
Wait. So, can we just confirm right now, the speakers are running uncorrected, the microphone is running corrected.
Uncorrected. So the only thing I've matched, roughly, because the DPA and the Gen X are not too bad, I get something that sounds not too badly different.
But presumably in your normal performance calibration routine, you would correct these things.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that would happen
if
in a normal
That's what I'm wondering,
It's
I'm
a
just
single
wondering how
FIR rather than like what's happening in the GLM system is there a bunch of EQ filters which are then being matched.
they're compensating for the...
Yeah, but it's being done as a kind of, so it's being mapped onto a simpler EQ curve, whereas here you're doing like a literal inversion into a long FIR filter.
which is then minimize the latency by doing it minimal phase because we don't care about phase lag. Anyway, we can talk about that later because I don't want to lose the flow.
That I've been researching a lot lately.
It's okay. I can send you a few good, very interesting papers about this and the real problems behind it. Again, the take-home message of that project is the current project. This is a messy max patch.
It's very messy.
Yeah. And you know, what's the song that Snoop says? Boys don't give a boys. Is that what he says? So the first thing that you get into performance. So we've reached a level where I trust what's coming in that patch right here. After the gain compensation is always vaguely in the same ballpark by ear. That's done. I've got my I/O confirmed, and this is where the stuff kind of be fun, because I've done speaker calibration. I've done PA against acoustic source calibration, so I know these two things are matching, and then I've done recording through that whole process, and what comes out of the speaker by ear is about the same volume and about the same color. I could put an EQ in there if I want. I don't care, because so far this is not the worst problem I've had. So you put that, you've got input. Now I can do, it's a dry space. I add some reverb for the person. By the way, you've noticed that I'm still stereo reducing at the bottom. I can add some cheap reverb for wonderful, these chamber musicians, they don't like dry space. So you put reverb behind them on stage, they feel like, oh. When it's behind them, they like it much better. So you can put it to the level where they feel comfortable, and you feel happy that it's not washy in the room, and that everyone's happy. They're my collaborator. I'm not gonna diss them. If that makes them play bad, I'm gonna give them some reverb. They're gonna play my music better. I want my music to sound good. I don't want them to be dry. That's a very strange parameter for making your music, to make it dry against your musician. Yes?
So I'm not familiar with your music, I'm afraid. So,
I'm sorry for you.
well,
No, sorry, we said no joke. Sorry. Yes?
I think it's not clear what's coming out of the speakers.
It will come very soon. You'll hear it right there.
Oh, okay.
Give me 2 seconds. So at the moment,
Well, actually, no, I think I need clarification. So, you're saying that you put them through the speakers, right?
No.
'Cause
I did put them in the previous test to match volume against volume, but all my chamber music is unamplified. The speakers are behind them, and the electronics
what I heard was like they feel more comfortable if they're not dry. So in my mind that means you're putting it on them, but I just wondered what that actually does.
Okay, so let's backtrack. You're right. What I didn't say is that my performers are dry. They play in the room with their instrument like they've always done, the millions of hours they've practiced. Amplification as a compensation mechanism is something I don't believe in. So what I do is I amplify all the time as effect, but I like chamber music to sound like chamber music. An amplified string quartet doesn't sound the same as a string quartet.
What are you amplifying? That's all I want to know.
Nothing so far.
It'll be saxophone in this.
It might be saxophone, it might be a trumpet, it might be a string quartet, but I'm not going to amplify them. That's the whole point. I want them to be in the sound, so the speakers are behind them on stage.
What is the sound?
The sound of the string quartet playing,
Yeah.
they play tunes, and that I might process. That process plus the fixed electronic part
Yeah.
are going to come from behind them, so they can use their chamber music ears to calibrate stage sound that is projected towards. Sorry.
So it might be a processing of them that's coming.
It might be a processing of them, as you will soon hear. It might be fixed tape, and often I am into dense polyphony. So you'll have many layers of things happening.
Just so I can imagine what this is for.
Yes, you will soon. So the second stage of things that are important is an idea of having transient identification for some side of interaction reactivity, which I have here. First, you obviously set an absolute minimum. You don't want the background noise to trigger transients. Well, maybe you do, but not in that music. And then I set a relative threshold here, where you have a slow envelope and a fast envelope being subtracted from each other. And then they go in a comparator. And here you see values that indicate that a transient will be around 20, and between my transient it goes down to, if I put a hysteresis of 6-7 dB, I'll be fine. So if I do 20 as my threshold and 15 as my reset, we should hear, I've got too far. I'm not loud enough in my absolute threshold, but that takes seconds to set, because you've got, my latency is quite big, because I was playing with big toys today. I'm going to lower my latency. It's quite accurate, quickly. Then there's feedback. Are you ready? So I'm going to set the feedback preset. I've got one that should be subtle, one that should be loud. I'm going to crank the gain. Oh yes, you can hear my voice. Until it feeds quietly, like I want. This is a bit loud, maybe? And then this should be louder than this. And then this should not feed, but it's hard for me to sound like a cello at the bottom. Yes?
Would you mind being in front of a speaker in a more realistic manner for your music?
You use Transient for
It's-
triggering stuff, or is it?
It's going to do exactly the same. So I'm going to go back here, give it this value. So last time I did that, the first time I did that with Peggy, singer, she spent half an hour playing like this, in front, not knowing she was in front of a full volume UPJ, which could have removed the skin from her face. And she was actually playing with feedback. So it's completely accurate. This is very nasty distortion for that piece. Really beautifully filtered. You can see the anal control of the compressor and limiter and expander right here. And this is more dirty. And this, I'll try that. It's kind of an octave or thingy. So, we have the settings, and should that be fragile, there's a gate here that you can set. And once you've done that, you click Save the Results, and you close that patch. And you hope that your calibration has worked, but there's also a way to go back to tuning. You've got all these wonderful settings, which are now saved. So you can open the tune, oh, not this. You can open the tune, and that, in effect, that tune has got lots of things inside it to fine-tune, but if you do just this, it's low the calibration, you're in stereo, the reverb is going to be on once you start the audio, you put that there, you put the Q0, you press spacebar, and then my small pitch material is granulated, but that's not. That's clever granulation for you. It's descriptor-based granulation. There's no way you can do that if you don't control your input. That's supposed to be very loud, and it's doing real-time shit on it. And let's say that I find this annoying sustain too loud, like now. Stem mixer, which allows me to calibrate the volume subtly between the different things. Oh, go to hell. Just stop being patronizing and open the right thing. Ta-da! So this, what we hear, is called sustain stem, and by default, it's at 0, so if you don't have that, what you hear when I do attacks, these are bass drums that are echoed, and these bass drums can be louder because God, I love bass drums. So let's just put them loud. Boom. And then I can go through the tune. The best bit is when there's some mega bass line coming. There's some tape bits coming in the piece like this. Stop feeding. It's all under control. I can micro-compose when I want anal control. Anal retentive control, I should say. I can micro-compose the gestures, and I can also tell them to go to hell. So I can also force the forward in the patch like most people would do, and at one point I'll get my big mother bass. Yeah! So every other attack. And I like my little squeaky thing. And a big panic button when you're tired of me. Any questions?
Can you go to -2 and -3 with a Q?
If I can go back at the cues.
Is there a...
For the creative performers, there's a negative timeline.
Exactly.
Yeah, there
I was
is.
wondering
It's really artificial intelligence. All the cues are, they preempt when you play. It looks at you and says like, give the bass drum before you do. No, seriously.
No, I'm good.
Me too.
Nice.
Yeah.
What are the squeaky sounds?
Yeah, so you have lots of layers in my music, and most of them are stems coming from the film world, we know about stems. So I can adjust the different layers. There's very rarely only one process and one file going on. So there will be, so at the squeaks will go, come on.
Yeah.
It's coming. So you've got that bass drum has got its own stem. By the way, these are preset, so I can like lower the processing. This is the processing side. I can lower it by 24 dB, so or 60 dB, so you only hear the fixed tape parts. And so you can have, if that bass drum irritates you on the set, you just lower it, you lower the bass. You can bring the harmonic, which we don't hear right now, and that what you hear is the dirt. So that's very super studio sound design, weeping modular synths and hyper stereo. It's made for 5 speakers live, so there's one that is embodied processing, and then you have a narrow stereo, wide stereo. These come from in a dialogue in the wide frontal stereo, this kind of annoying scratchy thing, which is a modular synth and aka with a dirty delay transposing it plus some dirty shit. But I do that, I always cheat. I never do only real time, I never do only fixed time. Because both of them are quite boring for me and for the performer. So, yeah.
Now I know what happened when Heather flipped the music stands on your face. I've been thinking about that for years.
So you want to know what's actually happening in that?
Yeah, but I want to ask my...
Okay, ask your question first.
My question is, so the way you're talking about it, sounds like you're very specific about micro gestures in the composition. So obviously your system is amazingly stable in different concert hall spaces, but you can't control necessarily the loudspeakers, right? The type of loudspeakers. So you're gonna get like, you know, different pitches of Larsen tones and things like that.
And that's where the sound calibration comes in. The first bit I skip, I calibrate the speakers to be.
You're always wanting to know exactly.
In that music, I'm control freak. The same way I've done the schedule.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
I do a lot of improvisation in free context, and as a producer, you have to be in between the two.
Yeah.
So I've got different hats in my life. This is chamber music. It's made for dots on the page with some people playing it in, I hope it will sound the same between performances. Therefore, I need to control the full chain. Now, that control is also useful in more open settings. If you know that your loudest bit will be generating 0 LU, then you know you can go away with the system and go where it goes. You're not going to explode people's brains.
I was curious.
And what she did, by the way, is subversions of means. So you have a microphone that is there for processing, and I want to give a cue that is both sloppy and instantaneous. So she snapped on the music stand, and that becomes a trigger. It's not a microphone anymore. It's used as a trigger instead of the pedal that she's been using 100 times already. So I'm sending false cues to my listener because at that point she must not off. That's very chamber music-y. I'm kind of always playing with the theatricality, and that's part of it. But I use the microphone to avoid her. Imagine, like, negligee pressing a pedal. There's kind of cognitive dissonance there for the listener. It's like, is she in control? Not, whatever. So I'm happy that you got that one. Thank you. We've got 2 minutes for one more question. I can open the patch. I'm happy to anything. But yeah.
So how long does your calibration, like the full calibration?
So, it depends. If I arrive in a room and only the PA is set up, I've got to put mic stands together and everything, 15 minutes.
So do you set up testing mics that are independent of your?
Yeah. So the speaker correction, you need to correct in the sweet spot. So what I do is like mid room, front-ish row, and then between the two, left and right. I've got 4 points in the kind of wide sweet spot. They will cancel when you average. The errors that are common will raise to the top. It's called regression to the mean. So I'm getting, if I round it up enough, I get what is common to that room in that sound system as an average for the calibration. Then I can inverse that problem in the sound system. I do that first, and then that's why you go in the analog domain to calibrate your acoustic loudness once you've done that. Because some speakers, plus minus 20 dB is really frequent. Like room measurement is a catastrophe. Like when you get into a real room and you look at impulse responses, you start to understand that a 414 is good enough for the job because they're going to ripple around 3 dBs. Like no room is ever plus minus 3 dB, even post calibration. So that's the kind of stuff I learned from my friend calibrating the toilet bowl in Manchester. And you could hear background in the mixing. So I was just like, whoa, this is great. How did you do that? They go from a shit system, plus minus 20 with resonance, and they go to plus minus 6, which is incredible order of magnitude of betterness. And in Alex's case, he was playing New York counterpoint, and because it's music based on notes, some notes were popping out like this in the mix, so the blend with the clarinet was not even working. And then he calibrated it, suddenly it made sense.
So what do you do with regards to, so for example, with feedback, where I guess this is close enough, but bodies in the room will change that.
Yeah,
so
it will.
Do you?
It's another order of magnitude.
like
It's
you
in
don't
another order of
compensate, like
magnitude.
you don't build okay.
So, like to answer completely, the reverb level is right here. So I still have pulse calibration control on the attack on set and reset, and there. During the performance, should the hole become hyper dry, then I can push a bit. If the performer is stressed and doesn't do the attacks properly, I can help a bit. And I've got my stem mixer, but when is it, those of you who mix music, when is it that you've had the luxury to adjust plus minus 1 dB on stems? That's always what I do. With this setup, I'm never boosting by plus or minus 2 dB to get acoustic for what I want. It's like, this is amazing. In terms of quality of control, when you want that control, you might not want that, and this is definitely not for you.